Today we're at Stewart Cemetery, just outside of Merlin, Ontario, on the middle line. It's a beautiful place, rural cemetery, broken up into old sections, new sections, and we're going to meet with Alan today. He's going to share a bit of the behind the scenes. So Alan, we're standing here today in Stewart Cemetery, and you've shared a bit of the history with us here. And one thing that we're not exactly sure why it's called Stewart Cemetery, it just is.
It just is.
You were sharing with us that some of the earliest graves, with some bit of research,
are about mid-1830s, 1835, 1836.
Right, and as the cemetery has slowly made these four purchases of kind of four pieces of land, the oldest graves would be in the first section, I imagine, right?
Correct.
So all the 1830s, 1800 graves are in that section.
Yeah, and a lot of them are the older limestone markers on them.
Right.
That were deteriorating, and before I was on the board had done a bunch of work to try to save them, and they poured cement, laid the limestone tombstones in the cement and set them in there, which has preserved them to some extent, but it opened them up to acid rain. First settlers came into this area in about 1832, 1833.
Right.
That actually stayed and settled. When I was reading the history book, it says they followed a blaze trail from somewhere in Raleigh to here. So there'd been people here before them. They just hadn't settled and stayed.
Sure. Is Stewart Cemetery open to the public? Like, could anyone purchase a grave and be buried here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We sell a lot of plots directly
to the family.
To the family.
In your time, how long have you been on the board?
I've probably been on for, I would guess, about 20 years.
20 years. And the fourth purchase, as you mentioned, is across the road and used to be, what was the name of the school?
It was SS number 3 South Tilbury East, and it was called Stewart School.
Stewart School.
Same as the cemetery.
And you went there as a little
went there
kid.
from grade 1 to grade 8.
Wow. You realize you went to school at a cemetery.
That is correct.
That's great.
Cremations have become very much more popular than full burial has.
Sure.
There's a lot more cremations, internments of ashes rather than
the full
casket burial. There's still a number of empty plots here where families have bought maybe 16 plots at a time when they bought them.
Oh, right.
And there are some over there with 3 generations in plots beside each other.
Well, you must see that too, where say a family buys 16 plots and then a bunch of years pass.
And there are a bunch of plots in here that are dormant. There's a fair number of the families still in this area, and we have had a few burials in here where the family was originally from here, they've left the area, and they've come back to be buried here.
Oh, okay.
Last summer, I was contacted by a man that had been raised in Merlin, said he left the Merlin area when he was about 19 to join the Canadian military.
Wow.
He's now in Calgary, Alberta, and he was contacting the cemetery about buying 2 plots for he and his wife. He said after military, he had a career where he traveled the world and never really had any place that he called home. So he figured this was as close to home as any place was. So he was looking to buy a couple plots for his final resting place.
I love that. He's coming back home. It's an ancient thing.
One thing I'll say, the maintenance cost of keeping the cemeteries is getting to be more expensive. Grass cutting in particular, in our case, runs into a lot of money, and we pretty much rely on donations from people who have family here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To keep the cemetery maintained. Until last year, every year, the second Sunday in June has been the Memorial and Decoration Day here.
The families come back and...
Yeah, there's usually probably 150 people will show up on the Sunday for that.
That's great.
Short, probably an hour service.